Okay, and we are live. Today is 5th of September, and this is OSRA Scrum. Here is Craig, Mota, Sam, Nikita, and me. And let's start with you, Nikita.
Sure. I'll be pretty quick. I've been away from a lot of coding and away from Slack all day yesterday and most of the day today, so I'm a little bit out of touch. I submitted a very small pull request in the meantime to refactor some of the initialization methods that occur when two different models get instantiated, and Craig and Sam Preeti have looked at it. I think it's almost ready to be merged, or maybe is fully ready to be merged. And I'm just catching up on everything that you were discussing, guys, in the Slack channel, so I hope that I'll join the conversation soon. And I also took a new story on Pivotal Tracker. It's in the backlog, this link a sponsor with an orphan. We still need to vote on it before I can start. And I will have some questions for Motism about what exactly we need to do here. But this is what I will work on in the near future. And there is nothing blocking me except for lack of time, as usual.
But Nikita, this story is connected to sprint, which was planned on Monday. I hope it was planned on Monday, on Tuesday. Or it isn't connected. Why is it in backlog but not in current sprint?
It was me who moved it into the backlog. I did so. Maybe I shouldn't have done it.
We did not vote yet on it, so maybe that's why it's still in Icebox.
Well, okay. So it should not be a part of the sprint then?
It shouldn't be a part of a sprint, yes, because well, guys, that's sad, but I haven't participated in sprint planning meeting because it was somehow
time has changed.
Yes, time has been changed. It's not a good idea to change time on that day. Can you describe briefly what's happened there and all stories that we have now in current sprint? Is it our sprint? We decided that we can choose that amount of story for us, or we haven't decided that? It's just, I don't know.
I think part of the problem that we're having, Pavel, is that because we don't really have much experience on how many points, I can't remember whether it's on momentum or it's difficult to work out what we're going to fit in a sprint yet. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense completely.
So I think we're not doing that well. Certainly, I'm not doing it very, very well at all, and so we're probably not.
Okay, it's anyway. You put some stories in sprint, right? Some stories and chores in sprint, right?
I think we put them in the backlog. I think that was the definition of what had to be done for the sprint.
I think this is the confusion. I think yes, like Craig said, we put the things that we want to do in the sprint in the backlog, saying that whenever somebody is free, he will take one of them from the
backlog, not in current.
No, in backlog. But I think now with your discussion, I think it's supposed to be in current.
Yes.
Even if nobody is working on it at the moment.
Yes, that's the main idea. Every story which you decided to complete in the sprint, 2-week sprint, should be put it in current. So it should be voted at least before we can start working on it and put them into the sprint. So what I see now, we have current sprint, for example, and we have chore for Nikita, his owner, improve model validation specs, and it hasn't been finished. So first of all, Nikita should work on that chore, but not on that user story, according to our planning.
Okay.
I've
done the same thing with sponsor OSRA ID. If you look at that, I've taken ownership of that.
Yes, you've taken ownership.
In current, we left it in backlog because
So what we can do now, if we decided that on that meeting that backlog is our current sprint, what we should do, we should vote on these 2 stories today and move all that stories to current sprint, and that's it. And work only on them. We shouldn't take any stories from Icebox to current sprint, through backlog to current sprint, unless we finished all other stories.
All backlog.
That's
all current.
That's the situation that I'm in, actually. That story that you pointed to earlier, Pavel, the refactoring, it's going through code review at the moment, and in fact I think code review is largely finished. I just need to address, as far as I remember, there was only one concern by Modison that I haven't addressed yet. Although I wouldn't be surprised if Sam Preety left a whole bunch of comments. Unexpected in the last second, basically. But I found myself with nothing to do, essentially, which is why I went looking through another story that I could pick up.
Okay.
I don't think you've done anything wrong, Nick. I think when we did the sprint planning meeting, we just used the backlog. I think they should be in current. I think that's where we've gone wrong.
So this story is, we decided that we should put it into the sprint, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yes. So we can move. Oh my god. How can we move it?
Are you an owner in this project?
No. It seems
I can do that, Pavel. I have Pivotal open right now.
Yeah, do it, please.
Or if you send me... Okay, I can send you an invite.
It's not the fact that you can do it, actually, because here we have settings. Maybe you cannot. I think I'm not the member of that project. That's the problem. Current iteration.
Yeah, I cannot move directly.
You can, yes.
I just sent you an invitation, I think, Pavel, to be.
Send an invitation to me, because we have to change the settings. We had to move that plan current iteration automatically to plan it manually. And in this case, we can move stories. But okay. Let's go to Modison and Craig, and after that decide what to do with the stories.
Okay. I was away for a day and a half almost. So, but when I came back, I followed the conversation that was happening on the different pull requests. I put some comments on some of those things. And I was working, basically trying to finish one of the stories in current, which is the orphan model. The model itself is finished, but I need to do the views required for update and index. The main thing is update. So I'm kind of being blocked now by active admin nested forms thing. I couldn't figure it out how to make it work. So we have one model, which is the orphan, and it has 2 attributes that are references to other model, which is an address. So I need to be able to create the address in the same form, and when I save it, it will save the 2 addresses in their respective table, and then link that to the actual orphan model. So I couldn't figure this out in active admin.
Maybe we could pair on that, Modison.
Yeah, exactly. We were talking about this. Maybe I need to pair with somebody to see how it's done. And other than that, I think that's it. I was trying to work on some of the chores that are not code-related chores, like cleaning up the ERD diagram, trying to just keep track of all the open questions that the team is facing so that we agree on a decision and move forward. We don't want to block some PRs because of too many different opinions on some topic.
Okay,
so this kind of things.
But where is work that you're doing?
The story itself is in the current.
It's orphan details?
Orphan details, yes.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And once that is done, because there is in the backlog, there is one story which was dependent on it. And I also have, did not mention this, I submitted a PR for the branches story as well. That is also being code reviewed. So once that code review is done, we can merge that, and waiting for another story by Sly to complete. Those two stories are the prerequisites for one more story that we need to work on in this sprint as well, which is taken up by Craig. So Craig is basically waiting for my PR to finish, waiting on Sly's PR to be submitted and then reviewed and merged, and then he can start on that ID story, the OSRA ID story for sponsors.
Okay, Craig?
I'm almost finished my feature chore because I've seen Sly's work in progress, and he's done all the features for his job. He's got to refactor them because he based it on the features before I refactored the features, but he's gonna get on with that. And I've been talking to Motisum about implementing the sponsor features as part of or closely after finishing the sponsor active admin bit with Motisum.
You mean the orphan, not the sponsor?
Sorry.
For the orphan.
Yeah. There's nothing really blocking me. I'm really enjoying myself. I mean, all the code review and everything that's happening at the moment, and the feedback I'm getting off other people has just been fantastic. It's made me have to think more critically about my code than I've ever done before, and I'm really enjoying it.
Okay, I have one question, Craig.
Yep.
You told us how many things you've done. It is all for that chore, right?
It's for the features chore, yes.
Start using Cucumber and Capybara for testing, right?
Yep, and I've also taken ownership, I think it's in the backlog, of the
Sponsor OSRA ID.
Yeah.
I haven't voted. Yeah, what I found, look, we don't use tasks, and that is bad. When you said how many things you've done, you haven't finished tasks. You haven't used tasks, but it is a good idea to divide stories or chores into tasks that can be finished earlier, so we can track our progress.
Okay.
And when you're saying, for example, that I've done this and that, it's ideally it is the tasks that you've done, so we see that amount of work that we still need to do. And for Motasem, the same thing. When you said about these big details, story, orphan details, and you said about that year demo diagram and something else, and no tasks, so we have no ideas what involved in that story. It is better when you can look at it.
I have to be honest, I see what you're saying. I feel like I'm failing big time at the moment on Pivotal Tracker, because when I get into a Git workflow, I tend to use Git and a GitHub and not Pivotal Tracker. It's almost like Pivotal Tracker's the start and the end of the workflow rather than keeping people up to date, if that makes sense.
Would it be a good idea for big stories like that, to make each task into a separate pull request, so that then you have a natural kind of endpoint? You submit a pull request, and right after you do that, you go to Pivotal and you add a comment, mark off the task as checked.
I think that's a great idea. I've done 3 or 4 pull requests now for that, and that could have quite easily equated to 3 or 4 tasks, so people know what's going on. I guess that, you know, when I feel like it's strange. It's only that you've mentioned it now that I realise where I'm failing, because I'm spending all this time in GitHub and I'm doing my commits and on the on the descriptions, I'm saying which pivotal tracker story it is. So we've got all this information in Git that's linking to pivotal tracker, but there's actually no information in pivotal tracker that's certainly on my stories that's linking back to Git, and that's I think I need to rectify that.
Yeah, I try when I submit a pull request. I usually try to remember as in the activity, this kind of comment area under the task. I usually try to put a link to the pivot to the GitHub pull request.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
But I think that Pivotal Tracker have some connectors to GitHub. Maybe we should explore it because it should be connected. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean that would be much easier, and it would be great. We've got all the information there in GitHub. I'm just not going back and filling it in Pivotal Tracker.
Okay. Yeah, let's I guess everybody maybe when you have time, let's have a look through if we can hook up the two.
Yeah, you can, at least Tracker API supports integration with post-commit hooks of systems such GitHub.
Is that something that's done in website 1, for example? We can take a look at how they're doing it.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but I'm sure that in website 1 we have tasks.
I think that would be a good phase 1 job, and maybe we do it manually on phase notes, so we get a deliverable to the customer as quickly as possible. I don't know what people's thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I agree that we probably shouldn't spend too much time on this. If somebody can figure out how to do it quickly, then cheers to them. But otherwise, let's focus on the sprints.
Yeah, I mean, with the small number of stories at the moment, it's easy to keep everything in mind. Like everybody who's working on a story knows how many pull requests you need, so he can put it manually. Later, we can think about automating this.
Okay, but at least tasks you should create at least tasks.
I agree with that.
So basically, two things we need to improve on Pivotal Tracker. Everything that we are planning in this Scrum should be in current and voted for at the beginning of the Scrum. Plus, every story will have tasks, and each task will correspond to a...
Not every story. For example, in my job, we apply that rule. If the story is more than 1 day of work, it should be divided into tasks.
Yes.
So every time we have a Scrum meeting, you saying what you finished. So I finished that task, for example, and we can see in Pivotal Tracker or in Jira that you finished this task and what tasks do you need to do. If your tasks is more than 1 day, then it's hard to track progress and it's hard to say what actually did you do, and the same as if the story is big and not divided into tasks, we just lose the focus on what should we do, and how can we help, for example. So that's why it's a good idea to have tasks. And there shouldn't be that much tasks. If tasks is just 1 hour, you shouldn't make it as a task. No point in that.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then for Scrum, I think it's over, the Scrum part of it. And let's vote for 2 stories.
I'll just say right from the beginning that on that story that I took ownership of, Link, a sponsor with an orphan, I don't feel like I am able to vote on it just because I don't know the details.
Yeah, that's part of it. Like, we make sure that everybody is on the same page regarding what's needed, and then we vote.
Okay, so I understand that what we want to do, let's say at the level of active record, is we want to have orphan has many sponsors through sponsorship and sponsor has many orphans through sponsorships. My question is more about the user interaction with all of this. Are we talking about the user is looking at the long list of orphans and how does the link actually happen?
Okay. The client's idea is to do it from the sponsor side. So on each sponsor, you are on a sponsor page, on the view page of a sponsor, and there would be a button saying sponsor a new orphan.
Okay.
For that particular sponsor. When you click that, you will need to. Their idea was just to put the ID of the orphan there.
How is the orphan chosen at that
Yes.
point?
So their idea was to have the orphan chosen beforehand. Like you go to the orphan index view or the list, and then you filter by some criteria. Active Admin already gives you those filters that you can say, okay, maybe this sponsor will have preference, for example, to sponsor an orphan from a particular province with a particular age range, for example.
Okay, so
Things like that. So they will filter the orphans. They will select one of the orphans that are not sponsored. The status of that orphan should be not sponsored at the moment, and then they will copy, for example, the ID of that orphan, and then they go to the process of assigning that to the sponsor from the sponsor page.
Okay.
I don't feel this is the best way to do it, but this is what they just suggested.
I understand if that's the client.
It makes it nice and easy for a phase 0 step, though, doesn't it? I mean, we could always make it better.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit uncertain about this idea of, so for example, in the sponsor model, should we have a record of sponsor's preference? Because at the moment there is nothing in there. Right?
Now, at the moment there is something called comments or more details in the sponsors table, right?
Is that correct? Sponsor.
Motosam, do we have a mock-up of that form? I don't know.
A mock-up of the view page itself? Not really, no.
So there's this additional info, is that what you're referring
to? Yes, exactly. Like some sponsor will come and say exactly they have a kind of a condition that they want, like I told you. Maybe they want to sponsor orphans from particular province or a particular gender or a particular age group.
But who choose orphan? Who connect orphan to sponsor?
The OSRA user. We have an OSRA user role, which is specific to managing sponsors. So this is will be their their job basically. Their daily job is to look at sponsors who.
Okay, so maybe I missed the point. So what we're supposed to do? That OSRA user, he read additional info in sponsor, what province the sponsor should have an orphan or some other details. When he goes to list,
that's free text.
Yeah, when he goes to list of orphans, right? And he have access to list of orphans, right?
Yes, he can search through the list of orphans. Yes.
Okay. Do we have already search, right?
I mean, Active Admin itself will give you very rich filtering.
Already, okay.
Functionality.
So
yes.
he can filter, found the orphan and copy his ID or her ID and put it into the page for sponsor to relationship, right? So in this case, it's very easy story. Like you click the button to connect sponsor to orphan and choose the ID of orphan. Just click connect and that's it, right?
Yes, but now at the background, what is happening is that we have a many-to-many relationship between sponsors and orphans. So there is a table in the middle which is shown in the ARD diagram, which is sponsorships, we can call it. Yes. So that's one more, like this will be a has and belongs to relationship. So that will take the ID of the orphan.
Okay, and do we have that table in our model?
That's part of the story. That's part of the story what needs to be built. Yes.
Okay, so you need to create that table.
Yes, and based on that action, the status of the orphan will have to change, and the status of the sponsor will have to change as well. So the orphan now is sponsored, so that their status will be changed to sponsored, and the sponsor status that cannot be changed actually.
Also, I see sponsorship status that we do not have now, right?
The sponsorship status also, this will be like when inserting a new sponsorship, that will be active, and then you see my point? because
Okay.
we're just inserting it now.
Yeah.
Then at a later stage, maybe in phase 1, we'll have a way to disable sponsorship.
Okay, guys.
The opposite.
So let's look at an idea. We need to put tasks. So what should we do? Create the sponsorship table, right?
Yes, I think, yeah, with the separate task.
We need to create a sponsorship table. We need to create, this is the new page, right? A new web page for connect
Yes.
sponsor to orphan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just simple page.
Yes, and from the sponsor page, we need a button that will take us to this page to say that I want to add a new orphan.
Yes. Create a button on the.
So we're for the time being we're okay with an OSRA employee looking at a record of a sponsor, reading and I don't know, writing on a little sticky note the sponsor's preference, then going to the orphans page, checking off manually again the criteria by which we want to filter,
Mm-hmm.
and then clicking a button, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
What we should do else? We should create sponsorship. Sponsorship. It's type of sponsorship, or what is it? Yeah, sponsorship status. Create a sponsorship status dictionary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dictionary. Sponsor.
It's a separate table, right? Modism, sponsorship status.
Yeah, I was under the impression that there was a discussion to merge it in the sponsorship table itself. So we'll have just one more column with it. But then I discussed it with Samprit. He said that's not what he meant. So yeah, we'll keep it a separate table.
Okay.
Create. What is it? How to call it? Create.
I think this is fine, Pavel. Update orphan status.
Okay. Update orphan status.
Okay, but now that's assuming the orphan status table exists, which is not this at the moment.
So create orphan status table.
As well, yeah.
Oh, really? Oh my god, okay. Create orphan.
The points are adding up for this story. Huh?
Yeah, I was at 1 before we started.
Yeah.
Yes, so maybe now I'm thinking maybe split into 2 stories, like create the status tables, that's 1 story, and then...
Yeah, well, I mean, the tables, creating the tables is maybe tedious to write all the validations, but it's fairly straightforward, I think. But I would probably submit that as a separate pull request.
Which is a task here, which makes logical sense.
Okay, 7 tasks. We can split that story, we may not split that story, it's just our decision. Actually, if you want to split it, we should... I don't know, to split it or not.
I mean, I can see how it falls together logically, everything.
Yeah, like that. It's not disjointed and you're not looking across stories.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think it's definitely going to turn into multiple PRs, but as a story, I think it belongs together.
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have all information to vote?
Yep.
Okay. Then, guys, one idea about voting. Let me show you one thing that I want. Maybe you will install it, and we can try a new way of voting. That one thing, playing poker for Hangouts. You can try to install it, and next time we can try to use it. Because I've installed it already. It is maybe easier to use than to just our text voting for the story, you know.
Can you post the link on the chat, please?
Yes, sure. It's here. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, for now, let's it may take some time. Let's vote. Let me. Okay. Well, when everyone just put the estimation of the story into the chat, and now I'm counting from 3 to 0, and after that just click them all together. So 3, 2, 1, go. Wow.
Unanimous.
That was easy.
Okay. 3. Okay. 3. Oh, there.
Unestimated, it says. You can just maybe click this. No, see under the feature, it says feature. Or yeah, we can do it from here.
I see. Here. Okay, great. Next one, sponsor OSRA ID. So, who thinks it's the easy story?
Okay, let me just open it. Sponsor OSRA ID.
Okay, Moto-san, can you make a brief introduction?
Yes, sure. Now, a sponsor can be brought in to OSRA through two channels. Either through OSRA employee, for example, introducing them to the organization, and that employee belongs to a branch. So in this case, we say this sponsor is brought in through a branch, an OSRA branch. And in that case, they will have a different ID than if they are brought in through a sister organization. So a sister organization is another organization that is maybe has access to sponsors or individuals who are willing to help. And those organizations will direct those individuals to OSRA. So those sponsors will be brought in from an organization. And that's a different format for those IDs as well. So basically, the ID is a 7-digit ID. The first digit is whether it will signify whether that sponsor came from a branch or a sister organization, just 1 digit. Then 2 digits is because the code of the branch and the code of an organization is also 2 digits. So take that and then append the 4-digit sequence. The sequence should be per organization, per type. I mean, per type first, then per organization. So we'll have different sequences. And so basically, this story is just to generate. We'll have create one attribute in that model, and fill that. Generate at the time of saving to the database. We calculate based on this type and based on the branch or the organization. We calculate that, generate the sequence, concatenate everything, and set it and save it.
Do we have an attribute already that denotes whether the sponsor was recruited by OSRA?
This is the sponsor type, yes.
That's the sponsor type, okay.
Mm-hmm. Sponsor type will say it's an individual, which means it came from from a branch. And if it's an organization, it says type organizations.
Mm-hmm.
And then the list, I mean, this story is dependent on finishing the branch's story and the organization story. But both of those stories will have a table for branches with 2-digit codes and names for branches, same for organization.
So and we use this sequential gem to generate the number?
The sequence gem, yes.
Sequence, yes.
Yes. Right. Now, I did something similar on the sponsor IDs.
Mm-hmm.
But, on the partner IDs. But those sequences were per province. But here, ideally, we'll have per type and per branch, for example, or per. So, just an example. Sponsor 1 brought in through branch 01. So their ID would have 01 and then 0001. Second sponsor through the same branch will have sequence 0002. Now third sponsor through another branch will have 001. Again.
So we're looking at the first three, every unique combination of the first 3 digits has their own unique ID.
So sequence gem has something called scope, where you can scope the sequence by some field in that model. I don't know if you can do it by 2 fields, but like you said, we can concatenate the first 2-3 digits to make a unique combination, and that make that a scope. So we can look at doing this, even if it's not a field in the table itself, but you can have that as our scope. I'm not sure how to do it exactly, but if that is too difficult or proves troublesome, then we can just say this is a sequence per type, for example.
Is this done when the sponsor's created?
Yes, when you create a sponsor, you assign the OSRA number, and that number should not be changed at all after that.
So are we looking at some sort of JavaScript where, depending on whether you select individual or organization, a drop-down box for...
If you look at how we are doing it in Partner, we have before create, we're calling a method that will generate OSRA number.
No,
so before it goes to the database, this gets invoked and will fill out this field. So the field is not shown in the form, of course. And we
but the sponsor and the branch has to be.
Yes, exactly.
So
whether they will have a drop-down list, yes. So
and when you select a drop-down list type, the field of whether it's going to be the branch boxes to choose from or organization are going to have to be dependent on what's selected on the drop-down box. Am I right?
Yes, so if they select from the drop-down box type is individual, they should see in the second drop-down box list of branches. Whether if they select organization, they should see a list of organizations, yes. And showing hiding the second drop-down should be done in JavaScript, I guess, right?
Yeah, I mean, if it's happening on in the view, then.
Now, what are people's feelings on this? Because best practice is to implement it as a full request response thing, and then sort of gracefully degrade JavaScript on top of it. I know on website 1 they've just went and implemented JavaScript straight away on the assumption that.
Yeah.
Most people just use JavaScript nowadays. What are people's feelings on this?
Well, we can tell the client that they have no choice but to use JavaScript.
I did not get your point, but if you mean like just to cater to people who do not have JavaScript on their browser, then this is something definitely we can say this requirements for using this app is to have JavaScript enabled.
Okay.
Actually, I have no idea why we need JavaScript.
Say again?
I completely missed the idea. Why do we need JavaScript?
Well, because when you, if you look at the story, the digits 2 and 3 are either a sister organization code or a branch code, and whether you show a branch code. A branch code selection box or a sister code selection box depends on whether you choose individual or organization for the first digit. Have I explained that very well?
Well, it didn't explain why we should use JavaScript.
Okay. If you imagine the view itself, you'll have one drop-down list that says this is organization or individual, or through a branch or through an organization. When you select through a branch, the second drop box should show you only list of branches, while if you select organization, it should show you list of organization. So the way I was thinking about it is to have both drop-down lists, but then hide the one that is not. I mean, just view enable the one that belongs to the actual selected type.
Well, yeah, guys, there is a way to do it without JavaScript, and that is to have both branch selection box and organization selection box. But once the data gets sent back to the server basically ignores one or the other.
Yeah, that's a way to, and that's a way to degrade it gracefully, isn't it? Yeah. Because what you could then do is overlay JavaScript on top of that,
right?
To hide and if it doesn't hide, it's not the end of the world.
Well,
Exactly.
guys, we have a second option to do it. We can do 2 pages. So on the first page, you connect just to a sponsor, for example, or sponsor type, and then go click next and choose other one.
Yeah,
So
I think
just
sure.
another idea.
But my
now we
comment
have,
on all of this, though.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Motasim. My comment on all of this is that this is certainly starting to sound like 2 completely separate stories to me. One is entering the sponsor information through the web page and implementing either JavaScript or sequential views, and then the other story is generating the ID number. Don't you think? Because to generate the ID number, if you have all the information in hand, it's relatively trivial, yeah. But messing around with JavaScript and testing, yeah, it's less trivial. So I would suggest breaking this up into 2 separate stories then.
What about if it's in the same story? The last task would be just generate the ID based on the information we have. So the last step is trivial, so it does not warrant having it on its own pivotal tracker. But I mean, I don't mind.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. I mean, that's the easiest part of.
Why do we need that ID actually?
Which file?
That,
why do we need the ID?
Yes, because if we have connection 1 and connection 2, what's the point in ID?
ID needs to be displayed to the user, the OSRA employees, so that they can refer to a particular sponsor with the ID. So even though in the database it will have all the information to identify the sponsor, but for them they don't want to say they want to use those IDs that matches what they have currently.
While we're doing all this, I know this is going to sound silly, but is 4 digits enough for the last?
Yeah, good point.
I discussed this with them and they said yes.
Okay.
Because like we said, we have an order of 1,000 orphans, so 10,000 sponsors per branch is more than enough to take care of all of those orphans, even if we grow up by 1 order of magnitude, I think.
They should think bigger.
Let's break it down into tasks. What first task should it be? Create a view.
Yes.
For a view which connect on view on which sponsor type or what?
Individual and organization, isn't it?
Yeah, so sponsor type will be selected in that. We already have the view to create a sponsor. We just need to. I think it's already includes. I mean, this. Okay, create.
It does have that, but then what I need then add the next 2 dialog boxes below it, don't I?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Guys, you know what would be really helpful at this point is to have a good idea of the flow of the app, because if creation of the sponsor starts with the OSRA employee going to the page for the branch or for the organization, then a lot of the stuff gets taken care of automatically, right? You go to the page of the branch. On the branch, you have a button, Add Sponsor, and that pre-populates immediately what we need. So if we could, I don't know, back up, maybe it's not, and now is probably not the good time, but if we can back up and look at it from a bird's eye view and think about how the flow goes, you know, some of these things maybe are easier than we think they are at this point.
The client never mentioned they would have a page for branches. They said we need the data of branches that we can refer to it. So there's no page for each branch, for example. But I can see your point. In the long run, maybe they wouldn't want a page for a branch, including, for example, a list of all the employees belonging to that branch. And from there, maybe create a sponsor.
For phase 0, though, sponsor is the page to start it from, isn't it?
All right.
I guess.
All right. Mm-hmm.
So next task is to create a view on which branch type will be selected. Branch will be selected, right?
Either branch or organization, depending on the sponsor type.
So when you say create view here, I read it as create a brand new page, but in fact it's the same page. Is that?
Say create on the view, create on the view, and then.
Great.
So we already have a view called new sponsor view. So on that we need to add.
And here, do we have it, right?
We have it.
Same.
Okay. Okay, so it's just update web page. Okay, great. And only I generate ID and that's it?
And the part about hiding or showing, which of those two drop-down lists? Did we agree on to do it sequentially or degrade to JavaScript, or discuss like three options?
It sounds to me like the easiest might be to do everything on the same page, and without JavaScript, the server just throws away one of the values.
But with JavaScript, we don't want to show the...
With JavaScript, that box is just disabled.
Yeah.
So
we can implement it without JavaScript for the time being. Or if, Craig, this is your story, if you're feeling particularly ambitious. Yeah.
Craig, how do you feel?
Maybe you have another pivotal tracker story on just beautifying the view. So now we have the minimum usable feature implemented, which is, like you said, they select both. Both are displayed.
Enough, right? Okay. When it should be enough, when we should make minimum viable product for now. Okay. When just three tasks, create on the view in which sponsor type will be selected, create a field. It is a field. Create a field. Create a field in which branch organization will be selected, and generate ID, and that's it.
And okay, generate ID will include creating the field that ID will be held in, and creating the method after initialization.
I thought it was already created. No?
No.
Well, the field and the attribute for the sponsor is already in place. It's the OSRA attribute.
Yes.
So what's necessary?
Yeah. It's just there is a placeholder for the method that now it does nothing.
Right. Yeah. So what Craig will have to do is write the method in the model. Yeah.
So we shouldn't create field.
No, it's already there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then that's it. Are we ready for vote?
Craig's
I'm just looking at the schema. The field is not there. We're talking about sponsors, right? Yeah.
So plus, it's not the field, right?
We have type is there, and that's it.
Okay, so need a migration.
Yeah,
but
they
what
need
is the plus then? What is the plus then? What does plus mean?
Plus?
Yes. We have name plus. We have also number plus.
Plus is just a field. I mean, a star is a relationship, like a reference.
Okay.
Just a list
so we have field for num.
No, I'm looking at the actual schema.
Yeah, it turns out that we don't, Pavel. Sorry, I was wrong. So it's supposed to be there, but it isn't.
So the ARD is just like a full view of everything that we should have, but so far we have implementing subsets of those. So we don't have.
Okay,
so we need a migration to add branch code, organization code. We have type already, so we need those two plus the OSRA num.
Okay, but when it is, it should be done as a chore by you, Motosu.
No. I mean, we can add it as a chore, but the original idea when I created this story was to have that part of this. So when we need to store the branch code or the organization code and the OSRA num, we will add those in a migration that belongs to this particular story.
So we need to create a field for OSRA num.
For branch code, organization code, and OSRA num. Or should we just keep a code and that based on the type and the code?
Oh no. How many fields we should create?
I think 3, but I'm just thinking like if 2 of those can be merged. But I think if we leave them as 3.
Type and branch is the dictionaries.
Yes.
So
type, branch, and organization are
it's the dictionaries. Okay, do we have the dictionaries?
The actual, yeah. No, I'm saying create a field that references those dictionaries. The actual dictionaries are 2 different separate stories. We have a story on the branches, on the organization, which is worked by Sly, and I'm working on the branches dictionary.
Okay, and when you create branch dictionary, you didn't create that field in the sponsor and in the user?
No, because that story is on the dictionary table itself. And for organization case, for example, there is a view also to modify, but that's separate. Like that's only concerned with that actual table.
Well, then this is not the story sponsor OSRA ID. It's absolutely different story.
I see your point. Yes, I mean, they're all related, but then from the client's point of view, they said, okay, we need to generate an ID based on this, and for them, this is a single story.
Okay, so we need to create a field for branch, for the branch organization
and OSRA num.
and OSRA. Okay.
Oh, Craig is gone.
Yeah, he posted on Slack that he lost internet, but now it's back, but he can't connect to the Hangout for some reason.
Oh, I just saw this, yeah.
Why?
I'm not sure.
Post again a link, maybe. He would connect it.
Yeah, he's back.
Hey guys.
Oh, great. Hi, Craig. What was the last phrase that you that you remember?
You'd put 2 tasks in for the views, and I was just about to say we didn't need the first one because it was already implemented, and then I lost you guys.
Oh my god. Well, it seems that it wasn't implemented.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe it is. Guys.
Just leave it there. It's not a problem.
Okay, so we have 4 tasks. Is it enough to that story?
Okay, so create a field. Yeah, I think yes. This is having this in place. This will implement the story. Then the JavaScript is just an additional.
It's different. It's for next sprint.
Yeah.
Let's. We should do minimal viable product. Okay.
And, for example, adding validation that if type is branch, then branch code should not be empty. These kind of
Yeah.
things. Is that a separate task or?
No. This is TDD. So test first.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, should we include it here as a separate task?
No. I don't see it as a separate task. I think it's integral part of the process.
Yeah, it's just a question of quality of what you do. Yeah. Okay. So, are we ready for vote?
Yes.
Okay. Then.
Oh.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go on.
I'm ready.
Okay. Then enter your number and I count from 3 to 0 and then click enter. Okay. 3, 2, 1, go. Motasem?
I thought about it being a 2, but then maybe with all the different tests of the various scenarios. So some because there is conditionals in the validation itself as well. If some fields will be optional based on some other condition, so that's something new we are doing in this project. So maybe that's what made me put it up to 3.
I have to be honest, if it was website 1 we were voting on, I would have given that a 3, and I would have given Nick's previous one a breakdown into. They tend to be focus on much smaller tasks. But given that Nick's is a 3, that's why I gave mine a 2.
Well,
I don't mind if you want to consider it a 2. That's fine by me.
Well, to me, guys, I am. So basically the order of business would be to add the necessary attributes, add the columns to the tables. So you generate a migration, fairly straightforward. After that, if the view already exists, then basically making sure that what we want to be displayed on the view is displayed. Again, I'm not familiar with ActiveAdmin very much at this point, but from everything Motasem you said, it sounds to me like it's relatively straightforward to create the views. And then the generate ID method itself, it's going to go down a few branches, and if you want to have good test coverage, you're going to have to write all the branching tests as well. But the logic itself doesn't seem to be very complicated to me.
No, I do agree. But on website 1, anything that creates a migration is given a 2 before they even.
Yeah.
Minimum 2.
Well, guys, we a different project, so we can use different.
No, I'm happy with 2. I'm just kind of trying to. You tend to go on what you've seen before a little bit, don't you?
Yeah. True. So Motasem, going with 2?
2, yes, 2 is fine.
Okay. Okay, 2. Okay, well, by the way, in project, start iterations on Tuesdays, 2 weeks. Okay. If you want to change scale, we can change the scale. We can use Fibonacci, and we will have 5 or 8 too. So just.
I feel more comfortable with 1, 2, 3 because
okay.
Is there a logarithmic?
No, it's not logarithmic. Guys, that's the idea. The story with 2 points are only 50% less than story with 3 points. It's not logarithmic scale. You should understand that carefully.
Yeah. No, I wasn't being very serious, Paul.
No. Sometimes even I think that it's logarithmic scale,
right?
But it's not.
Okay.
That's why 1, 2, and 3 maybe not enough actually for.
Yeah, I like Fibonacci myself. I don't know, just because of
definitely
math nerdery, but
yeah,
that's
okay, guys. Anyway, we have now all stories that we should do in the sprint. And for now, we have 1 week and 2 days to finish them. And we should concentrate on that stories to finish. That's the whole idea. After that, Motosem, you should to the end of the next week, you should talk with your client and plan client meeting.
Yes, I'm meeting the client on Tuesday. So yes, I'll give them an update of what's happening. There are a few questions that we had as a team for them, and yeah, basically.
Yes, but you should plan the meeting with them where we will accept stories.
So what date should I give them?
It should be end of the sprint. It may be Friday, or what date actually is suited for the members.
The next sprint starts on the 16th.
Yes, so it may be 15th, for example. It may be 12th of September.
Okay.
12th, 15th of September. Decide, guys.
I prefer 15 because I'm traveling on the 12th. I will ask them to see what their preference
Nikita, can you participate on 15?
What day is that? Day of the week?
Monday.
Monday. What time do you think that would be? Around the same time as we hold the Scrum?
I think we will have an issue. The client is at UTC -3, and I will be at UTC +4. It's the other way around. They will be at +3, I'll be at -4. So there is a 7-hour time difference. And you guys are like in the middle, right? Around UTC?
I'm +3.
You're +3, okay. So
I'm +4.
Yeah. Okay, so same time here would be, now it's what?
So if it's 1900 UTC, then -4, 3 in the afternoon, and
so for me that will be 3 in the afternoon.
Yeah, and for us 10 in the evening, and for Pavel 11.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yes, that is fine. Unless there is an emergency, in my case, I will let you know. But for now, it's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Well, guys, any other questions to discuss?
There are a couple of technical discussions going on, but I see like everybody is
participating. Yeah, like I said, guys, I'll try to catch up to everything that's been going on, and I'll pitch in as quickly as I can.
There's a couple of people that have already waded in, but I think there's a bit of confusion over the database. I think Thomas Ockman and Brian
I saw their comments.
Seem to think that we're choosing one over the other rather than
both or just
both or just validations. So I'm not sure whether that's.
No. You know, I've been reading up on it, and basically it seems that it's either all the way to the right or all the way to the left. People kind of treat it as a Bible, whichever way they choose to go.
I think it's related to the background of the person. Like if somebody who's learned software development through the agile methodology, they just tend to think of doing everything in the application. While, for example, my background is in enterprise application at banks, for example, where we rely on the database for everything. We don't trust the application at all. So.
I think you've also got to query the technology that you use. You know, if we're using a SQL database, why if we're not? It just seems I don't have an issue with relying on validations, but it just seems then we're using the wrong.
I'm definitely not advocating discarding validations in a model.
Definitely, yes.
Absolutely.
No, they need to be there regardless. But I just think you can bypass them quite easily. I mean, update columns and all these things. Don't do validations if you're in Rails. And if someone writes a utility at a later point in time that just speaks to Postgres directly, you've got no protection there at all. That's my only concern. But as I say, I don't mind either way as long as we all know what we're we're doing, and
Yeah, we can take Thomas's and Brian's opinions under advisement basically, and then make our own decision on it. Like I said, I'll try to write something. I guess we're doing this now through GitHub, Modusum. Is that correct?
Yeah, I thought to
it's an issue on GitHub, yeah.
put it there in one place.
Yeah. So yeah, I tend to be in favor of database constraints myself, so I'm going to vote that way. Maybe I can write some kind of coherent argument for why I think that that's good.
Yeah, but can you, okay, if you are going to try something new, can you just emphasize the fact that we're not abandoning model validations?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, sure.
Somebody is confused about what we're trying to do. Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, guys.
Thanks for a lovely
Let's
meeting.
call it a day.
Yeah.
Pavel.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Pavel, cheers. Yeah, thanks for helping us out. And
Oh, no problem. I like to do it.
yeah.
Yeah.
When is your exam, by the way?
Tomorrow.
Yeah. Oof. Okay. Off to bed with you.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Okay, guys. See you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Good
Bye.
luck.
Bye.